in the capital city of Kyiv. Ukrainian officials are calling on the international community to put more pressure on Vladimir Putin to stop this. This morning, Russia launched its largest aerial assault since the war with Ukraine began. Drones and missiles pummeling neighborhoods and government buildings.
Smoke rising from the skyline in Kyiv after the largest Russian air attack since the war began. Sirens sounded across the country and
Imagine 810 drones roaring toward a single city in the dead of night. Kyiv woke to the sound of engines and explosions as 4 ballistic missiles and 9 cruise missiles followed behind, overwhelming the sky in what Ukraine calls the largest aerial assault of the war. Air defenses fired more than 1,200 interceptors in under 2 hours. Yet dozens of weapons still punched through, striking a government ministry. How do you counter an attack designed to paralyze a nation? Stay with us, because the answer wasn't just defense. It was a counterstrike codenamed Operation Black Dawn. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video.
Of Russia's position on Ukraine for all the talk of diplomacy and Donald Trump's faltering efforts to mediate.
810 drones and 13 missiles into the country in the latest barrage, of which 747 drones and 4 missiles were shot down. Flames coming out of the cabinet building in Kyiv, marking what authorities said was the first strike on the main government office since the war began.
Could any country fight back after 810 drones and 13 missiles streak through its skies in a single night? That's the kind of assault designed to break defenses and morale in one blow. Yet just hours later, deep under Kyiv, Ukrainian generals were not talking about surrender. They were huddled in a buried command bunker, eyes glued to shifting satellite feeds and maps riddled with red strike zones. Every minute counted. The pressure wasn't only to defend, but to show Russia that their most massive aerial strike of the war would not go unanswered. Inside that bunker, the mood did not resemble triumph or even confidence. It was urgency bordering on desperation. Commanders had only a narrow window to retaliate before Russian crews dispersed from the launch zones and fuel trucks resupplied frontline positions. Supplies were thin, many rockets already spent during the defense of Kyiv hours earlier. What remained was untested, hundreds of improvised drones assembled by technicians who had been working around the clock with consumer electronics, stripped circuits, and salvaged engines. At the heart of it all sat a single mobile control station. If that was disabled, the retaliation collapsed instantly. The entire strategy hung on moving pieces that had never operated together in full combat. Reconnaissance drones would fly ahead, scanning Russian artillery nests and bunker positions. Right behind them, jammers rigged with high-powered antennas would try to blind radar arrays expected to sweep the skies. The final wave, strike UAVs carrying small but concentrated explosives, were built to hit fuel depots and ammunition hubs in Donetsk. It was a simple design, almost fragile in execution, yet the only available plan amid dwindling options. What tipped everything close to disaster wasn't Russian fire. It came from within. Minutes before launch, the lights in the control van snapped out and screens went dark. Operators sat in silence, unsure whether they were being jammed or hit by an internal fault. The culprit turned out to be a fried power module, unable to carry the load after hours of non-stop use.
Rising here is from the building that houses the Cabinet of Ministers, in the heart of Kyiv's heavily fortified government district. Another major strike on Ukraine's capital, an escalation in a war already marked by countless assaults. Largest aerial attack since the full-scale invasion began. More than 800 drones and decoys launched, along with missiles.
In the bunker above, officers thought the window had slammed shut, but 2 technicians refused to let the operation end before it started. They sprinted outside to a small garage, pried open the hood of a tractor, and dragged out a diesel generator hidden under spare tarps. The machine wasn't meant for military use, but within minutes, cables stretched from its engine block into the control system. At last, the monitors flickered back. The mission had been saved with farm equipment. The drones lifted in waves. Russian jammers quickly caused havoc, and many UAVs spiraled down. 90 were lost before crossing the front line, yet others pushed deeper, evading with low-altitude flight. Remote operators cheered as cameras transmitted the first successful strikes. Fuel storage tanks ignited in Donetsk, followed by a chain reaction that tore through artillery shells stacked carelessly nearby. Secondary blasts churned black smoke across the horizon, evidence that the strike had teeth.
Western officials say Moscow's strategy of targeting civilian areas remains central to its offensive. Residents described being jolted awake by powerful explosions that caused widespread destruction. Interview recorded before the attack, President Zelensky said Russia had no intention of negotiating peacefully.
Momentum shifted further when armored columns moved in behind the drone chaos. Ukrainian tanks advanced in coordinated lines, gunners executing crossfire maneuvers to cover overlapping fields. In under 20 minutes of combat near the outskirts, 17 Russian tanks were disabled and crews fled positions assumed to be secure only hours earlier. Broken formations gave Ukrainian infantry a chance to move under relative cover, capitalizing on the shock that followed. Then came the hammer strike. 3 Grom, 2 ballistic missiles, each packed with a 1,000-kilogram warhead, targeted hardened bunkers identified by earlier drone surveillance. The first slammed into a supply station, rupturing fuel and ammunition. The second tore through the outer shell of an underground command center. The third buried itself into a fortified bunker containing key staff. Reports estimated more than 600 Russian troops were suddenly out of the fight, not only through casualties, but disorganization after the annihilation of their control hub. For Ukraine, this was more than retaliation. What unfolded after Kyiv's darkest night was proof that determination and improvisation could convert survival into counterattack. Instead of passively absorbing Russia's onslaught, commanders turned consumer drones, tractor power, and improvised planning into a decisive blow. It wasn't just defense anymore. It was the ability to strike back and shift initiative. Wars like this show the truth. Machines don't decide outcomes. People do. Every strike, every defense rests on operators adapting under pressure and refusing to collapse, even when fighting with improvised tools. That resilience is what bends the balance. Understanding these moments matters. Each battle reveals new tactics shaping global military strategy, and breaking them down makes us sharper observers of the world. If you want detailed breakdowns of future operations, subscribe and share this video so more people can follow these shifts. Because after Donetsk's base became scorched earth, the wider war isn't just changing, it's entering unknown territory.